Hey cats, what's happening? It's a rainy day. In fact, just a little bit ago it was pouring down rain, pouring cats and dogs. So not a very good day for a ride on the scooter. But it brought back memories of a time back when I did ride in the rain. And particularly a trip I took to Chillicothe to the Easy Riders Rodeo. Now, in one of my more recent videos, I talked about the Chillicothe Rodeo down in Chillicothe, Ohio, south of Columbus, Ohio. And it's quite a ride from here. I think it took probably about 4 hours for me to ride down, 3.5, 4 hours to ride down there. I don't remember. It was a pretty long ride. But usually what I would do is I'd get off work on Friday, half a day if I could. I'd already have the bike packed up with all my camping gear ready to go, because when you get down there, you'd camp out for the weekend. And you get there Friday night, you come home on Sunday morning. So Friday night's when most of the action happened, so that's when I always tried to be there. So I worked half a day Friday. I got off work and it was pouring down rain. And I thought, oh man, it's got to stop raining. I hightailed it home, got the bike, had everything all packed up, ready to go. Jumped on the scooter, put my rain gear on, and headed out on the road. Well, the further I rode, the harder it rained. And I got on the highway and started heading south. And it just kept raining harder and harder and harder. It was one of those heavy pouring rains where every time a semi went by, you got like the tidal wave of water sprayed at you. And it was probably a little dangerous to be riding in that kind of weather, because I could barely see the taillights of the car ahead of me, and I just kind of stayed behind that vehicle. There was other bikes on the road too, but the funny thing was, every time I came to an overpass, you know, all the bikes would be lined up underneath the bridge trying to get dry, and I just hammered right through. I never stopped. It was my goal to hurry up and get there and get a campsite, because the campsites, they get picked over really quick. In fact, I think some of the people always got there a day early, even, you know, Thursday or even Friday morning, and picked over the sites. So but that was my best shot to get there sometime late Friday afternoon and get my camp set up. Well, the rain poured all the way down there, and about the time I got down towards Chillicothe, it really actually stopped raining. But by then I was, you know, I had my rain gear on, so I was fairly dry, but my feet were soaking wet. My boots were only so much waterproof, but after riding that long, you know, I could lift up my boots and pour the water out of them. So, you know, and then I let it wet around the collar, you know, and where it soaks through in certain places, you get a little damp, but it wasn't much to worry about. Paid my mission and rode into the rally. Well, like I said before, the Chillicothe Rodeo event, the Easy Riders Rodeo event, is held inside the fairground area, which is like the fenced-in area where you have to have a ticket to get in. You don't need a ticket. Well, you had to have a wristband, you know, to get into the event. But everything outside of the fairgrounds, which were all of the parking fields, were open for camping. So it's first come, first served, or every man for himself, I guess I should say, to find a campsite. Well, I get there and I'm riding up into the parking fields, and I'm going to tell you what, they were a mud hole. They were so muddy, I could hardly even get my bike to move. The back tire was spinning, slipping and sliding. It was like driving on ice. Mud was spraying up everywhere. I pretty much had to ride with my feet down, because the bike was just fishtailing, and even the front tire wouldn't even, you try to steer, and it was just kind of following these muddy ruts. And I was supposed to meet a buddy down there who was already camped down there. But I had no idea where he was. I really didn't have a clue. And after maybe a half hour of fighting through this mud, I found a little grassy spot that was open for a tent, and I just parked the bike and set up my tent. Well, I hadn't been there very long, and just about the time I got my tent set up, here comes my buddy walking along, and he says, "Dude, take your tent down. I got a spot for us. Don't worry about it. We're on dry ground." I go, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "As a matter of fact, we get VIP camping. We're going to be camping with the Outlaws." I don't have any thing going on with the Outlaws. Never did. Don't know any of them. So I thought, well, okay, you sure that's going to be okay? He said, "Absolutely fine." He goes, "I got passes for us. We'll get right in. No problem." So tore down the camp real quick, threw everything back on the scooter, and made my way through the mud hole all the way up to the other side of the fairgrounds, and they had a area that was fenced in, like with chain link fence, and there was a gate there, and there was a guy at the gate, and we stopped, and my buddy showed him the pass and everything, and he waved us through, and we went in, and we set up camp in there with the Outlaws, and they had a whole big area. They had all kinds of campers in there, and tents and canopies and all kinds of stuff, food and everything. It was really nice. So we had kind of an enjoyable time on dry ground there in the Outlaw camp, and then we could go out from there and do whatever we wanted. So, as I said before, it is a carnival of just about anything you can think of. Anything goes. And what they would do is parade around this loop that was outside of the actual fairground, but in the parking fields. And this parade would go around and around 24/7, and it was just about anything you could think of. They would have garden tractors, four-wheelers, quads, side-by-sides, people riding their motorcycles, scooters, mini bikes, people just walking in all forms of dress and attire. Some of them very interesting and unique. There was a couple gals that were strolling around there, and I wouldn't put them high on my rating list, but they seemed to be nice gals. Well, they had a bottle of whiskey with them, and they kept on drinking that as they was going around. I don't know, after about an hour or so, by the time they made like their third loop around, they was both of them practically naked, and didn't seem to care one iota. And I saw a lot of stuff like that, and even worse, because there was just a lot of open lewd acts going on. And as it got dark, it got even crazier, because they had people would come in with like a flatbed truck, and that would become a stage, so to speak. So they would have strobe lights up there, and then they'd get a gal up there dancing and twirling around and showing her stuff, and they'd pass a hat around for collections, and people were throwing money left and right. Well, that's pandering, I guess, and it's illegal. So the sheriff would have to come around, and there'd always be a lookout, and when they saw the sheriff coming on, the sheriff rode on a golf cart. And these poor sheriffs had to ride around on that thing all day, and there was a couple of big old potbelly sheriffs riding around there. And they pretty much had this look on their face like they couldn't care less, but they were just there. It was part of their job, and I didn't really see them bust anybody, because when the lookout saw them coming around the corner on their golf cart, they usually disbanded the little entertainment real quick, and everybody dissipated. And that was that, and the sheriff just kind of putsied by and kept on going. So most of the wild stuff went on then, Friday night. And people would get trashed, I mean, beyond all means. I saw some of the drunkest people that I think I've ever seen before, just down in the gutter, dirty drunk. I saw guys fighting, swinging at each other, so drunk they couldn't even stand up, falling down in the mud and take another swing and fall face first in the mud. And that was a little humorous, but I mean, they were seriously fighting, but they were so drunk they couldn't even fight. That was the funny part. I made a couple rounds around there and then went back and called it a night. But the next morning then, of course, everybody hung over and not feeling too good. And then remembering what they did the night before, even worse, and going, uh-oh, what did I do last night? I'm sure there's a lot of people that were like that. Some of them, unfortunately, they were carried out by ambulance. So I don't know if they OD'd or something happened, but it was bad. But then, during the day, the parade would pick up again, around and around they would go. But it was a lot tamer because most of the stuff happened Friday night, and now Saturday, they were hungover, not feeling so great. And although they were still partying, wanting to have fun, they weren't prone to be as wild as they were to begin with. I did see a guy, though, on a big dresser, Ultra, and he thought he was going to do, a nice little burnout. So he revved up his Harley right there on the parade route, all the people standing around watching. It was a pretty crowded area. And he popped out that clutch and started smoking the back tire. Well, that tire grabbed the pavement, and it grabbed it hard. And that bike shot off like a bullet. He knocked back on the handlebars and lost control. Dumped the bike. The bike slid. He went face first, bam, right down in the asphalt. And the bike slid right into a four-wheeler that a kid was sitting on. Well, it smashed the kid's leg right up against the four-wheeler, and I don't know if the kid broke his leg or not, but he was in a world of misery. Now, the guy that was on the bike, he got up, and it looked like his nose was broken, and his face was all bloody, and he brushed the gravel off of him, and he went over, picked his Ultra up, and started it back up, and turned around and took off. And never did see him again, so I don't know what the outcome of that one was. But that's kind of the Wild West mentality that went on there. Every man for himself. Watch out for your own self. And be careful, because there's a lot of crazy idiots that were there. I mean, it was more than I ever expected, and I think more than I'd ever want to see again. Saturday night come around, things were very calm, a lot of music, a lot of people partying, but you didn't see any of the, real crazy lewd acts or anything like that. They were pretty much all shut down. That stuff always happened earlier Friday night, so things were much calmer on Saturday. You might see something going on if you were really looking, but things were way tamer. And then Sunday morning, everybody was packing up and leaving. In fact, I think some people packed up and left Saturday too. By then, the mud had pretty much dried out. There were still some muddy areas, but you could at least ride on some dry ground to get out of there. My bike was trashed, covered with mud from one end to the other, so that I had a pretty good cleanup on it. But it was a weekend that I'll never forget. Good times, good friends, and thanks to the Outlaws for letting us use their camp and share their food with them, and good times. They were some pretty good people, all in all. Well, that's my story for today, cats. Like I said, rainy day. Autumn's moving in now. Temperatures are going down. It's getting colder. Bike runs good in the cold, though, so give me a good sunny day and I'm gone. Till next time, guys, ride hard and die free.